Hi, I want to tell you a little bit today about how to organize your essay, your upcoming essay, which is a compare-contrast essay. And I thought I would do a little demonstration for you today with the whiteboard about two methods of organizing your essay. One is the block method, and the other is the point-by-point method. And so I'm going to go through and tell you a little bit about how you can utilize each one of them to your benefit and the benefits of each one for comparing or contrasting. Okay, so I'm gonna pick a topic from off the top of my head that has nothing to do with your assignment whatsoever. A lot of history assignments will ask you to do something like compare and contrast World War I and World War II. Usually a good assignment, though, will ask you to either compare or contrast, and that can be a really strong assignment if you choose to compare or contrast, not to do both. You'll wind up with a stronger thesis statement and a stronger paper throughout, okay? So we'll go for World War I and World War II. Again, it's off the top of my head. So let's use the block method to think about both of these. If you use the block method, this is the method that you want to use whenever you're talking about differences, okay? So this is the kind of organization to utilize if you're going to focus on the differences, the contrasts between two topics, okay? And so I would give my thesis statement. I would introduce the two topics. So I would introduce, this is what World War I was, this is what World War II was, and this is my thesis statement stating the contrasts. And then I would devote several paragraphs to just talking about the first topic. So I would talk about World War I. I might talk about the causes. I might talk about the type of warfare. So things like mustard gas, things like heavy artillery and tanks and things like that. I might talk about the number of casualties. Things of that nature, okay? And then I would spend several paragraphs talking about World War II and do the same kind of thing. I would then talk about the different kinds of causes. I would focus on the differences that World War II had in causes. So obviously it started in a different way. I would then maybe talk about how it wasn't mustard gas, it was air fire, air power. I would talk about the number of casualties being very different in that case. Okay, so air fire. Okay, and then I would give my conclusion, which would be more about reiterating the contrasts. And when I say reiterate, I don't mean restate your thesis, and I don't mean restate your introductory paragraph. A lot of times that's what we're told whenever we're learning how to write, is just restate. No, you want to tell me something that's interesting. You want to end your paper on a note that has something, not necessarily bring up new information, but tell me something interesting about what you've learned or what I, as the reader, should learn after I've gone through all of these things. So really tell me, what are some of the key differences and what should I know after we've gone through this list of differences between the two wars, okay? So let's jump over to the point-by-point method, and you'll see a big difference in the organizational pattern here. We're still talking about the same topics, but we're just going to organize it differently. And the point-by-point method can be used for both similarities and differences. That's the real difference between the two organizational methods, is that block really only works for differences, and I'll tell you why. Because if you just wrote two giant paragraphs on why they're the same, it's a totally repetitive paper, right? You're going to be reading World War II was like this. World War I was exactly the same. You have a paper that just repeats itself, and it's boring, okay? Point by point can be used for similarities and for differences. So let's think about, you'll come up with your first topic, okay? And then you'll say, so causes. World War I cause, and then World War II cause. Okay? And then you'll think about what was the most deadly weapon in both of them. Weaponry. Okay? And then maybe you'll talk about casualties. Casualties. You get treated to what all of my students do whenever I'm up in front of the whiteboard. I can barely spell. I can really spell in real life, but whenever I'm in front of people, I can't spell to save my life. And then maybe you want to finish it off by talking about the impact of each. So this is a way that you can talk about both how they could be similar and how they could be different. Because you could talk about how the causes were similar, how the weaponry might have similarities, how the casualties might be similar, or how the impact might be similar today. So these are two of the methods that you use to organize a compare-contrast essay. You pick the one that works for you. You pick what you think will be best to organize your paper, and that's it can be a real guiding organizational standard for which to write this paper. If you don't wind up following this kind of organizational pattern, you wind up kind of getting rid of everything that you wanted to say at the beginning of the essay and then not knowing what to say for the rest of your 4 or 5 pages. Okay? So this helps you to keep on track, helps you to have things to say in your paragraphs instead of running out of things to say within 2 paragraphs. All right, I hope this has been helpful.